I think we might be live already. Ooh, that happened quick. That's what's hard for me to gauge because sometimes it feels like it takes 3 or 4 minutes for me to get the live stream to work. And then sometimes like this one, it was just lickety split. And so I don't know how that goes. And I don't have a producer. And I don't have, I'm assuming it's sounding okay. I don't have all those extra things. The only thing that you will get from this channel that you will not get anywhere else is sound, vetted, tested, proven, seeable, irrefutable horse training, doctrine, principle, and method. Okay, so that's my sales pitch for you guys. This is office hours. I'm Jane Frizzell. We are meeting here every Wednesday at 3 o'clock. This summer, 2025, the topic is tense horses. Last summer, the topic for the summer was quote, I'm using air quotes deliberately, lazy or stuck horses. And what is interesting is that which unsticks a stuck horse tends to soothe a tense one. And when we are studying the masters, and I want to say something about that. In this program, riders and trainers who go through it all and then are starting to train it, they've gone through all the stages of the learning. They are required to prove their training from at least 3 masters and 3 separate nations. No one in this program is allowed to say, oh, je préfère le français, l'équitation français. No. No, I should say. In this program, it is a thorough education, which means that the rider trainers who are really, really into it, they test and prove themselves from 3 different nations. And that usually means more than 4 or 6 different master's instructions. So there's a big problem in the horse world these days of it's because of commercialization and shrewd marketing tactics of horse people becoming fascinated with either one person or one system. But the problem is there isn't individuals don't have their own system because there are actually only 2 ways to ride, the right way and the wrong way. And the right way is the forward system as outlined by, take your pick, Sommer, Strumsholm, Vorendorf, Vienna, the Iberian tradition, which goes to Vaquero. You see where I'm going with this? Even the Australian Light Brigade. You know what their motto was? Their motto was that to train within a spirit of enterprise and dash. So any decent riding conforms to the doctrines, principles, and methods that this program spells out, holds up, instructs, and requires riders and trainers to conform to. Okay, I hope I said that succinctly. I have a few announcements before we get into the before I'm going to talk a little bit more about tension. Okay, the first announcement is go back and watch the previous sessions of this series if you haven't. And I am also going to, for example, today, really want to reference you back to some other reading that you could do. There's also audiobooks, not by me, like classical. Actually, they are from classical audiobooks. Classical audio horse books is, I think, their name on is their commercial name. For example, that classical audio horse books has produced audio versions of several of the master's instructions. So you can listen to those, and the net is go back and look. And then the other part I want you to do is look in the description of these videos that I am putting here on Wednesdays. And after about 24 or 48 hours, I can't exactly guarantee when I'm going to get to it because I have a lot on my plate right now. There will be many resources and reminders and even an outline of what's talked over here that you could print out or, use for your own studies. Because one of the main problems, and actually it's a huge incubator for tension, is not really being clear on what it is we're supposed to do with the horses, literally. Like once we get to the arena, like what is it we're supposed to do? And that not knowing, last week I talked about it. I used the parable of the uncertain trumpet. No one will follow an uncertain trumpet. The horses can sense when someone doesn't quite know. So when you know, even if you just know a basic plan and some basic ideas, we must go do this in this, we must go there at this time in this way. If you are certain about that, the horses are going to be a lot more. It's not only a matter of them being obedient to that, or it is a matter of them having confidence in you. And some of them won't take you seriously, but this will make them take you a little more seriously. Some of them are horrified, realizing that their leader is a nincompoop or a phony poser that doesn't really know. So one horse might go, that person doesn't really know. That's why they wear sunglasses. And will just blow them off and not really pay attention. That could be a lazy and stuck horse. But some horses will go, oh my God, this person doesn't know. They're supposed to do what they want, and I'm bred and made to do what they want, but they're not making any sense, and I don't know what to do. The horses do have their own personal emotional responses to impossible stuff. So you've got to be certain and make things possible for the horses. All right. Now, I said that there's going to be resources in the description, but I'm not just going to be handing things out like on a silver platter, because very few of you deserve that. And it won't help you be a good rider, because a lot of learning the riding is having a hunger for it, that you want to know where it is. And I was thinking about this all last week, like how could that be done virtually? And I was remembering when I was in college and starting to work after college, I was in New York City, and the party circuit, I was very social and out and about a lot. And the party circuit, we didn't call them raves. Raves hadn't been invented yet. And a rave is more of an all-nighter. But these party circuits you kind of had to know, like you had to know who was having the party, and they would be big parties, like in, bars that would be rented out or nightclubs that would be rented out for the night. So they're not small, but you had to know where they were going to go because they would shift locations around the city. I can't remember if it was every week, but it was, or maybe the party. You had to know where they were going. And remember, and in those days, we didn't have cell phones, we didn't have internet, we didn't have anything. And I was trying to remember myself, how did we know where to go? And it's because there was a system. People would, first of all, if they got a phone call, they would remember it and write it down. They didn't need a link. Like, what if I go, okay, next week it's going to be at the surf club. So what if I didn't know where the surf club was? I would have to know where it was or ask someone or look it up in the phone book or whatever. So what I'm trying to say to you is that there were movable parties and things were moving around, and we had to, in our drunken condition of college, had to keep track of these things to follow around where we wanted to go. And we didn't have the benefit of internet, and I don't really know how we did it. And then a little later, after I straightened out and was riding again, it was a little bit the same way. Like, how do you know where the circuit is? How do you know who's riding what at 7:15 a.m. in white fences or at so-and-so's in Bremen? And you want to see that horse go, or you see, you kind of have to get in the know. And the internet has just completely, that sort of attitude of keeping alert, paying attention, and tracking things down and sussing things out. The internet has completely destroyed that. And you've got to have that. You've got to have the mettle, mettle, to care about where the information that you need is going to come from and seek it out. So the other thing that was a part of my youth and growing up was scavenger hunts. Same thing here on the internet. No, if someone doesn't provide you a link, people won't look. So I am from time to time going to reference something, and you need to find it. All right. I've also decided that I'm going to try to stick to this protocol that each week I'm going to very briefly but clearly notify you guys paying attention of red flags in the commercial horse world online. Last week I mentioned posturing and using posturing. It was actually a Buck Brannaman post it was so dumb, talking about how every different horse he would approach in a different posture. Like, this is a scared one, so I'll be welcoming. This is no, be yourself. If it's a crazy horse, take precaution. But posturing and being phony isn't right. And these horses are not grizzly bears that you're encountering on a narrow trail in Alaska. These are domestic animals, and they need to be approached with intelligence and knowledge. So one red flag is when you hear anyone talking about their vibe or persona or posturing that they adopt when approaching different horses. No. See, the thing is about riding is that I'm not different for each horse. I can communicate in different ways for each horse, but the material that horse needs to know in order to be a proper citizen and an educated fellow is identical across the board. And the only thing that is adjustable in me is, because I know it so well, is I can explain it so many different ways depending on his stage of life, previous knowledge, character, temperament, and state of mind in that moment. So the information doesn't change. This is a huge point I've just made. Okay. Now, another buzzword red flag, I'm sorry to report, is any trainer these days that is attaching the word classical to themselves. That has become a hijacked term. And it's become a hijacked commercial term and is utterly meaningless. Now, I get classical, I watch what these other clinician internet trainer people are doing online in order to try to provide a solution to the mosh pit. And there are some of these classical people, sometimes I get 6 emails from them in one weekend. It's just out of control. Classical, what I know is classical is what the classical guys said is classical. So what did, for example, where's the little book? Here's an assignment. This is an actually really simple, super enjoyable book. What did the author of this book tell us classical is? I like this. I'm not going to tell you. Find out. Okay, now, last week, I talked about the phenomenon of an uncertain trumpet, that no one will follow, including animals. They will not follow an uncertain trumpet. And that's why it's so very important for riders and trainers at any level, even a novice level, to know what you're doing. When I was a very little girl, the instructors prepared us so that when I went up to 12-2 Boomerang, who was still taller than me practically, I knew that I would be leading him to the center, turning and facing the stone wall, and leading him to the center line, turning and facing upon the center line, facing the stone wall, and pull down my stirrups. I already knew what that was all about. And as a result, Boomerang didn't pull anything. But I can guarantee you there were some bad ponies there. If there hadn't have been foreknowledge about what was going to occur or what was intended to occur, the ponies are way worse. Now, some of them, what's wrong with this? My little glasses thing is bothering me. Sometimes, if there is uncertainty, a pony like Boomerang will take advantage of it. But there are very sensitive horses, when they sense the uncertainty, will really start feeling uncertain. Horses go as they are ridden. And a lot of the buzzword jargon ridiculousness in the horse world these days is talking about their sensitivity and their emotions, but it's neglecting to, how can I say this? Like, we're sensitive to them, but they have to come through that and not have their sensitiveness, uncertainty exacerbated by the handlers. And even when a rider tips onto the fork and starts to get muscly, guess what that is? Well, first of all, it's wrong, but it's uncertainty. And the horses know it. And some of them will just drag you away like the shark pulling those buoys in Jaws. And some of them will go, oh my God! And that's why the doctrine, principles, and method, which are a system, a uniform, knowable system, gotta have those in your mind. That's how to not be an uncertain trumpet. Then the other things I talked about last week, which please go back and look because it's going to be directly referenced right now, was the summary of riding, where I very quickly laid out the system that I just referenced. And I quickly laid it out because it's so well known to me. I know it so well. I can write it down on a piece of paper. I can recite it. I can jump in at any point of it and talk about each stage of it or each part of it. And you can't use the scale anymore either because it's gotten so botched up from media, basically. I could talk about that more, but I'm not going to. The other thing that I touched on last week was an example, a horse, a mare named Tessa, who is really, really quieted down because of her rider understanding the system of training, which is forward straight. And as the summer progresses, I feel a little behind in this, but I will be posting corollary videos. There's a cowboy who has some wonderful examples of a tense horse that'll be a little series that will be in some manner available. I don't know when I'm going to get it all ready, but it's actually there. If you wanted to find it now, you could. So this is an example of me saying that you've got to have a little more bird dog in your own self and metal and want to have it. Okay, because nothing's going to get handed to you. No matter how this goes, even though I'm going to spill the beans, you have to take it on yourself. Okay, because it needs to become a part of you. That is what makes the horses go, she knows. Okay. Now, in the summary of riding last week, it starts when I explain it to people that have not had it laid out very clear, like on a table, like this is the salad fork, this is the regular fork, this is the steak knife, this is the dessert spoon, like really lay it out and explain each element. I always start with a statement from the very renowned classical master, Gustav Steinbrecht. There are other wonderful masters besides him. He wrote an extremely useful book on horse training that very accomplished riders usually call the Bible of riding, called The Gymnasium of the Horse. Vienna and Sommer actually agree with this, with his instructions too. Anything that does not agree is wrong. And as a little side note, you know who was very into Steinbrecht was Nuno Oliveira. And I know that because his son João told me so. Even before I had really studied the gymnasium, João told me that. Okay, so anyway, Steinbrecht's statement, this like ideal statement, which is a starting place, which is a cornerstone that we can always go back to, and which the horses will know if you know it, is this statement. The rider trainer has achieved his aim and fully trained his horse when both, that's two, forces of the hindquarters, the carrying power and the propulsive force, bound with elasticity, that's another little check mark you should write, are fully developed, and when he can use and combine the effects of these forces at will and in precise ratios. Horses settle down when the the dull horses activate and the tense horses settle when The carrying power of their hindquarters governs the thrust. When, in any other case, if the thrust, the propulsive force, aka thrust, supersedes, overwhelms, or takes over, or exceeds the carrying capacity, the carrying power of the hindquarters, that horse is running. A very well-trained, quieter horse will not go at all if he's not carrying. That is the horse that just barely moves if you kick the shit out of it, because it's not in gear. A more temperamental, sensitive, basket case prone type horse will be horrified when the propulsive force is overwhelming his own carrying ability, because internally to himself, he knows he's running. He feels downhill in his own self, and he knows it's wrong. And he knows that to a degree, it is out of control. The only way to manage propulsive force, okay, outside of carrying is the correct way to govern propulsive force. And it is the natural way. It is the way a horse's hindquarters are designed. And that is where motion starts, in the hindquarters of the horse. When the propulsive force isn't governed by carrying, just lost my train of thought. I'm just going to give you one more example. Oh, that sensitive horse, they know, like, have you ever been running, like running down a hill and felt like you were getting, like skiing, if you can tell you're about to wipe out and crash? That's how they feel internally. And hello, what's either going to happen? They're either going to stop or they're going to be scared and become tense. For me, it's as simple as that. I ride horses from behind. Carrying governs thrust. I don't let the carrying suppress the thrust, but I also make sure that the carrying governs the thrust, because that is what horse training is all about. And that leads me into the second stage of this. It's going to seem a little bit like a repetitive what I'm about to bring up, but it's very important and slightly different. It's like a different card in the PowerPoint, okay? Different slide in the PowerPoint presentation. There are also the 2 golden rules of riding, which are ride your horse forward and set it straight. Steinbrecht gives a superb and very dedicated explanation of these 2 golden rules. But every legitimate classical horse trainer, whether they're jumpers, inventors, working horses, whatever you want them to be, dressage horses, ride your horse forward and set it straight is we've got the aim. Let's just say that well, Steinbrecht said they were the 2 golden rules. And he said if these 2 golden rules are not observed due to ignorance or negligence, every fault, resistance, and anything that can go wrong in the training will. And guess what? If the horse is prone to tension, it will become a nervous wreck in a basket case, if these 2 golden rules are not observed. Okay, so what is forward and straight? I want you guys, some of you know, a few of you know, but it's not you, it's what the masters say forward and straight is, not what the internet says, not what the Facebook group says. You have to find out what these things really mean. Now, I have in Steinbrecht sessions, which has been every Tuesday for the last 23 weeks, we examined what the masters said forward and straight is in great depth, exactly as writ by the masters, not me, not Jane. This isn't my idea. And those 23 sessions are in a playlist, and you can find them. They're called the Steinbrecht sessions. They're not going to be on this channel forever. I am planning on converting them to a class on Udemy. Now, on this channel, which will remain here, is an audio from classical horse books, which it's not me. That's not my company, of the explanation of Ride Your Horse Forward and Set It Straight. Audio Classical Horse Books was kind enough to allow this program that I assembled and operate to use the audio version. So that is on this channel. Find it. I will put that link in the description, but you can find it because it might take me 2 days to get it in the description. You can find it as soon as we're done here. Find out what is forward straight. What do the masters say forward and straight is? Not what the internet says forward and straight is. What does Steinbrecht say it is? What does the Spanish riding school say it is? What does Sommer say it is? What does Major Lindgren say it is? That's what you have to know. And so before you become very convinced of this and still have a little uncertain trumpet in you, it sounds like, how could forward soothe a tense horse? Shouldn't I be trying to mellow that horse out? No. What time is it? You know what? I was going to talk about these 2 golden rules today, but I think I'm going to hit the brakes. You need to think about a horse using itself in accordance to the aim. The rider trainer has achieved his aim and fully trained his horse, the 2 forces of the hindquarters. Ponder that. Find out about that. And next week, I will talk about why riding horses forward and straight, according to the masters, not to the internet, mellows them out. And here's a hint. It's not because of my overwhelming empathetic nature. It's because of the parasympathetic part of their nervous system.